Hello, everyone. Welcome today to the Money Counts webinar series presented to you by the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. Today is webinar number 2 in our series, and we are going to be talking about building a better budget. Real quick, if you aren't familiar with our center, I just want to quickly fill you in on kind of who we are and what we do. So at the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center, we're pretty much the hub for personal finance resources for the Penn State community. We offer out our webinar series, but beyond the series, we have so many other resources and services. If you haven't checked out our website yet, there's everything that you need to know about us there. And it's a great place to start by looking at what we have for our resources. We offer presentations for classes, clubs, groups, different things like that on other topics like credit cards or identity theft and salary negotiation. And while we do offer a lot of opportunities for presentations, that isn't all that we do. We have so many other, we have so many other services. And one of our biggest services that we're really proud of is a free one. Well, they're all free, but this is our one-on-one coaching appointments, and you can schedule them to meet with a trained professional on any financial topic. They are offered out for any Penn State students and alumni, and we also offer appointments out specific to public service loan forgiveness for any of our faculty and staff members looking for help and guidance with that. We also have partnership with PNC Bank. And so because of that partnership with Penn State, you have access to coaching and access to education sessions with them. And you would just reach out to them to discuss that and talk with them about it. Let's go ahead and dig in. Today's takeaways, I just want to make sure that we're covering all these things. So some of you might find yourself here today after maybe setting some New Year's resolutions on improving your finances, or whatever reason you have for being here. Regardless, happy you're here. So everything today that we're going to talk about and everything financially related, it all starts with the foundation of budgeting. Budgeting is the base of it all, the foundation. And so it's important to understand that everything starts there. If you don't have a budget yet, then the goal of today is hoping that you can feel a little bit more comfortable after learning about it and understanding how to implement a budget. If you do have one and you're coming, hopefully you can leave feeling like you're able to strengthen your budget. We'll also discuss the benefits of budgeting and how it can help you. We will talk about some different tools and resources for maintaining a successful budget. It's important that we look at our budgets and understand that they are kind of like guide rails, and we can use them to help achieve our goals. And they can also really encourage peace of mind so that we are not as stressed about our financial situations. Budgets do take time to construct, and they will change as time goes on. So it's important that you keep that in the back of your mind, that anytime your income changes, your expenses change, or your financial goals change, that your budget will also need to adapt and change with them. Before we really start getting into the nitty-gritty pieces of budgeting, it's really important that we look at the elements of being financially well. It's often thought about that having a lot of money or having a really big net worth or even an excellent credit score is what would determine your financial wellness, but that's not the case. Income and money is all relative, and so you can look at someone and never know either how much money they have or how much debt they have. So just keeping in mind that it is all relative. Some people make a lot of money but don't have a lot of money. And then the opposite, where some people make just a little bit of money but have a lot. So as we talk about our finances, it's important to look at both the present and the future so that we can afford our bills and be able to pay things month to month so that we are secure in the present day, but then also look at the security out for our future and know that you're able to absorb any financial shock, such as an emergency where your laptop would break and you need to go and spend $600 on a new laptop. or you have an unexpected trip to the hospital and you have bills that need to be paid. So being financially well means that within your budget, you have those capabilities. And then there's also the freedom of choice. So we have the security and then the freedom of choice. In the present day, we want to be able to enjoy our life and make some of those choices. So budgeting can help. If you like to get coffee out every day, or if you like to go out to eat once or twice a week, you want to feel comfortable and free in the ability to make those choices while also feeling comfortable knowing that in the future you stay on track to meet any financial goals that you have, maybe like buying a house, buying a car, starting a family, anything like that. So we really like to look at this matrix and recognize how important budgeting is for our present and our future to provide that security and sense of freedom. When I think of uh, financial wellness and being financially well, it automatically makes me think of just having lowered stress, knowing that where my money is and it is where it's supposed to be. It helps me feel more comfortable and confident and empowered with knowing that my money is in the right place. So I love that you're here today and hope that you can definitely leave feeling more confident in your budget. All right. So when we at the center, we often look at our ladder to financial wellness. And this is, I know for me, I'm a really visual person. So being able to look at this ladder is super helpful. And that's if you're making 4K, 40K, or even 140K a year, this ladder is important to kind of have some stepping stones. And it will be different for every single person, no matter what. But when we look, we see in that green one at the bottom, you want to start out with that budget. And then as time goes on, you take up one step at a time to build your emergency fund, consider your debt, plan for your future, and then, of course, grow your wealth at the top. And the goal is that at some point in time, and it might take years and years and years, but the goal is really to get up to the top where you are absolutely empowered and comfortable and confident in your money. So budgeting, again, we start there at the bottom. I just want to lay some groundwork out and talk about what a budget is and what a budget isn't. So it's a game plan for your money and you tell it where to go versus wondering where it all went. So you're the boss of your money when we're talking budgeting and you get to be in the driver's seat and tell it where to go. Budgeting often gets a bad reputation because it often might feel like it's too restrictive, or you feel like maybe you can't spend any money on your wants, and it feels like it can be hard. So we're going to kind of talk through that a little bit throughout our time together today. And sometimes it feel like you might not be able to spend on your wants. But something I like to consider it my fun money or my play money. So it's important that you have that money set into your budget that you can spend on what you want and have that freedom of choice. And also, having a budget does not mean that you're cheap. Having a budget helps you reach your goals. It helps you spend and save your money how you want to spend and save your money. And ultimately, your budget tells your story. So I have here an example of a budget. We have Alex, who is a college student, and on the left side, he has items that he's budgeting for. And on the right side shows his income. If you can just take a couple seconds and look over Alex's budget and tell me what do you notice about this? And just send me something that you found that's good, something that is looking like it could change, any sort of thing that you kind of pick up, and just send that over in the Q&A box so that we can kind of just have an overview of what this budget looks like. So where is Alex spending too much money or not enough? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people coming in with there's too much spending. His expenses are way higher than his income. Yes, he's absolutely saving some money. Thanks, Sarah. Something that really sticks out right to me, automatically right out to me, is that there is a lot of dining out. We have someone saying not preparing for any car repairs, any sort of maybe like an emergency fund where Alex might need to have just a little extra in case of an emergency. Yeah, there's a lot of extra money spent in places. And so just keeping this in the back of our minds as we go throughout today and recognizing that there could definitely be some adjustments made in order to so that Alex could change so that he's in the green instead of the red. Thank you for those of you participating. I love seeing all those um, pieces coming through. Okay, so when we look at Alex's budget, we can recognize and hope that it was honest, accurate, and complete. And in order to make a good budget, that's what it needs to be. Oftentimes, people maybe look at, oh, they go out to eat and spend a little extra on a nice fancy dinner. And, oh, but I don't have to put that into my budget because it was not normal. It's not something they do all the time, but you want to make sure that every single thing that you're spending money on goes into that budget. Another way that people are not honest, accurate, or complete is sometimes with spending cash. People can look at cash as that it's fake money, as if it doesn't exist, and it kind of just slips right through because we're so accustomed to just swiping or tapping our credit cards. And it's so easy to just purchase now right away without thinking about that spending. So we're going to get into some of the budgeting styles now that we kind of have an overview. And I'm curious, anyone here with me? I know some participants put in information through before that they're looking to improve their budget. So I'm curious if you could just send me over a message. Do you have a budget? How do you document? And I'm curious as to what your budgeting styles look like. And you don't have to give anything that would be oversharing of personal information or anything like that. But maybe if you follow a certain style or method, or maybe you use a certain app or way to track, if you could just send over anything like that. All right, while you're sending over those, um, I do have up on the screen some of our budgeting styles. So I have some information coming through budgeting based on prior month's income, having to adjust back to budgeting because of some changes. Absolutely. Excel spreadsheets. I know that that's an often a favorite to use the envelope method. I'm glad to see that. That's often one that is forgotten about or not considered anymore because some people might think it's like old school. But I like the envelope method. Oh yeah, PNC bank spending. A lot of people have right on your bank account or your credit card. It does track for you. Very good. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sending that over. So like I said, here we have some of the most common budgeting styles. I have 5 listed out for us, and we're going to look into each of them. But when we sit back and look at our budgets, it's important to note our spending money, but as also we want to make sure that we're noting our saving money and that we're using our budget as a tool so that we can achieve our financial plans. So when we go throughout our session today, I'm going to discuss some tools later on. But we'll first talk about these methods, and then we'll talk about how you can use them and understand that they do change over time. So for example, for me, when I was right out of college, I had a lot of new expenses that I wasn't used to. I had to start paying on my school loans. I started paying rent after I moved out of my parents' house. More travel because of driving to work and more an increased expense toward food. So somebody else brought up the envelope method, and that's actually what I used right out of college. It was really helpful for me. But over the years, I've changed and I'm now using the 50-30-20 plan. And then if I do have any left over, I just increase that 20% and of savings, and whatever I have extra goes into that savings or towards any debts. So the first two styles that we have here, the 50-30-20 and the 70-20-10, these are styles that help break up your spending into two categories. So the 50-30-10, you have 50% of your budget that goes towards your needs, 30% that goes towards your wants, and 20% that goes towards your savings. When you budget using the 50-30-20 method, you take your total expected monthly income and divide it up into these categories. So you look at your past paychecks and kind of get about what you're expected that you're going to get for your income, and then break it down based on that. I had said that this is the method that I'm using right now. And of course, any of these budgets have pros as well as cons. So I do want to discuss some of those. The pros, some good things about this method. It's very simple and easy to use as well as maintain. There's not a lot of like work to be done with it. And there's a lot of flexibility within those three categories. So whatever the 50% for your needs is, you get to decide what goes into that as well as your 30% of wants. Another pro about this is that your essential needs are met while you're still able to save as a priority. And there are still wants that are allowed so that you're not feeling deprived, you're not feeling restricted within this budget. Some of the cons about this, some people, 50% to go towards your needs might feel a little bit too low, especially if you're right out of college and you have all those extra expenses. Also, sometimes it feels like the categories are too broad. And so people might find themselves having a difficult time managing the money that is used within each of those categories. And then the 20% that's going towards savings and debt isn't necessarily helping pay off some of those high interest debts quickly. There are some gray areas within the needs and the wants, but overall, if this is a style that works for you, then you can adapt it and adjust it to meet your financial goals. So there are a lot of positives about this. And then the next one, the 70-20-10, is very similar, but the categories are just broken up a little bit differently. So the 70% towards the expenses, and that would include your needs and your wants. So again, it's very unique to you, and you would decide how much of your needs go into that and how much of your wants are based on your income. Some really good things about the 70-20-10 method. It's very simple, it's very flexible, and you're also having 30% of that, so 20 going towards the savings and then 10% going towards the debt. So you're really promoting within your budget savings and growth for future security, whether it might be through investments or money into your emergency funds, whatever it might be, but you're really working on building those savings and debts there. Another negative about this, similar to the 50-30-20, it could possibly be unrealistic depending on your cost of living and your income. So you would just have to, again, adjust as needed. Some people would find that the categories, again, are too broad. 70% of my money goes towards my expenses. So what does that actually look like? And it would just make for a difficult time managing it. This can be seen as a less aggressive way as well to pay towards your debt because it's only 10%. And so you're continuing to maybe incur interest on any high debts that you have. And there might be some risk of overspending within there. But those are both really good methods. And again, bounce back and forth and see what works for you. Try one for a couple months, and if it's not working, adjust a little bit. There's also a newer method similar to the 50-30-20 that's actually the 60-20-20, where you would have 60% towards needs, 20% towards wants, and 20% towards savings, just in case you are paying a lot towards your bills and your cost of living, whether it be rent or a mortgage or whatever. Okay, the next three. These three styles, the cash envelope, the zero-based budget, and the pay yourself first, those three can be used within the other two. So the envelope method, this was often an older method that people would use, but it is also still used today and can be used virtually. There are some different apps and websites and things that can help you split up your money into envelopes. And so what it would look like is that whatever your fixed expenses are, you take out of the equation here, and you're only looking at your net income that goes towards your wants or your non-fixed uh, bills. So like food, gas, entertainment, those kinds of things. It wouldn't include your rent because that's the same every month. Your phone bill, your internet bill, those things wouldn't be included because they're the same every month. But you would take the money from your income and split it into actual envelopes, and you would label them based on the categories that you need. And every month, or if you get paid every 2 weeks and want to do it every 2 weeks, you can adjust and spend accordingly within your envelope method. But you put in, say you have $200 for food, you get $200 in cash, put that in the food envelope. If you have $100 towards gas, you get $100 and put that into your envelope. So whatever money you have to spend, and if it's gone, then it's gone. You can adjust and pull from, say, if you don't have enough money in the food envelope, then you would maybe pull from your entertainment fund. And so you can adjust based on that. There are, of course, some pros and cons here. The pros, because you're using actual physical cash, if you go with that route versus using an app or an online tool, you just have increased awareness. You recognize how much money is there. You see it, you feel it every time that you look at it. There's a larger reduce in your impulse buying, and it's easy to understand and customize based on your needs. Some cons about this: if you are using cash, it might be inconvenient where you find yourself going to your bank or credit union every month and needing to pull out that cash. There is a potential of a safety risk if your money would somehow get stolen. It's not necessarily ideal if you're paying online bills but using cash. And then you would just have to be really careful about keeping track of your receipts and your transactions because there is no paper trail like a credit card statement would have. But there are a lot of good uses for that cash envelope system, and the You Need a Budget actually has that as an option on there. So the next one we have is the zero-based budget. And the way that that works is that you would look at your expenses. I'm sorry, you would take your income and then pretty much give every single dollar a purpose, where you are breaking down and making sure that every single penny has a place to go every single month. And it can adjust based on your income. A lot of people who have variable incomes that change from month to month, this would be really beneficial for them because you can align your goals and make sure that your money is being spent based on how much is coming in. It can be time consuming and can be highly complex because you break down every single expense and list it out, and it might feel rigid and restrictive. However, I know a lot of people that find success in this because every penny is accounted for, and you're very confident and comfortable in knowing that you have a purpose for all of your money. And then the last one that we have here is the pay yourself first method, which some people could kind of look at it as reverse budgeting, where as soon as you get paid, your first priority is saving, and you get to decide whatever your saving money is going towards. Maybe it's your emergency fund. Maybe you have a retirement fund, 401k, 403b, IRA, any of those kinds of things. Maybe that saving is going towards debt, towards a down payment, towards a vacation that you're saving for. You get to decide wherever you want that money to go. An example of how I pay myself first is that as soon as my paycheck comes through, I actually have money that comes out of it to go in towards my retirement. I have some automatic payments made out of my credit union account to go into my high yield savings as well. So a really good piece of information because it's so much easier said than done. But anytime that you can automate and have a direct transfer can really help you to make sure that you're saving towards your future goals. Um, and again, you want to review and adjust anytime that you're getting a new job, anytime that you're moving, you want to just review it and adjust because you want to make sure that you have enough money for whatever else is left within your bank account that's coming out of your paycheck. Okay. So I'm curious now, there's a lot of information there, and I'm curious as to what style you like so far. So I'm putting out a poll you can see there after learning more about these, and you can select more than one. Um, but if you could just tell me which budget method you feel like would work very good for you. Lots of zero-based budgeting. That's definitely a really good way to put every single dollar, excuse me, to purpose. Yeah, the 50-20 is getting a good bit of people. Pay yourself first. And like I said earlier, the bottom three, the cash envelope, the zero-based budgeting, and the pay yourself first, the three of them can all work within the 50-30-20 or the 70-20-10. Yeah, so we're actually really close. The zero-based budgeting and 50-30-20 have the most. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. While some of you are finishing that poll, I do have a question out here. How do you know when to switch between the budget styles as you go through life? That's a really good question. And so, as you go through life, anytime that you would want to adjust your budgeting style, would really come with any sort of like big change, such as maybe you're buying a house, you're moving, you're getting married. You're graduating from college and your expenses change. So really any time that there's a big change. And then it's also important to just keep up with your budget so that on a biweekly, a monthly basis, you're just actively kind of looking at it, checking over it, making sure that it's still intact. And then maybe every couple months or so, kind of do a deeper dive into it and adjust as needed. I have another question that came through. Could I provide more information on high yield savings accounts? Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a quick little rundown since I did kind of mention that. And we do have another webinar in 2 weeks on the 17th that we're actually going to talk about saving and investing, so I can go more in depth on the high yield savings accounts then. But a high yield savings account is really powerful because you are putting your money into a savings account that would actually pay more interest than a general savings account. So for example, my credit union, it is paying like 0.09 on any money that's sitting in my savings account. Whereas any sort of high yield savings account, like for example, Ally or Discover or Capital One, there's so many different companies out there that have these high yield savings accounts. And right now, whatever money you would put into that would be earning back interest close to like a 3 or 4% is the going rate for them about now. And you just want to make sure you do your research and look into that. There are some like fine print things that you just want to be careful with, that maybe if you put your money in, you're signing that you'll keep that money there for at least 3 months before you would pull any out, or there's sometimes different stipulations. So you really just want to be aware of that with your high yield savings accounts. But the good thing is that putting money into a high yield savings account, it beats inflation. So that's why it's often recommended to put like your emergency fund, or if you're saving for a down payment or something like that, to put money into a high yield savings account. There's another question. How do you know how to allocate to different types of savings? Short term, 401k, etc. That's actually a really good question as well. I appreciate you all participating, and I'm happy that you have some of these questions. This is awesome. So, how much to allocate to different types of savings? That's really going to be based on what your needs are. If you are a student, I would definitely recommend to chat with us and maybe set up an appointment and we could talk to you about that. But it really is based on your bigger financial picture while also looking at the small term or short term goals. So you want to look out to your retirement and people who are retiring today, it's encouraged to have like 1 to 1.5 million. And then depending on your age, you will need a good bit of money for retirement to feel comfortable and safe, knowing that you'll be able to pay all your bills and everything. So you can work with someone, or you can really dig in and research information on how much to put away and just kind of, like I said, adjust. And I feel like I'm not giving a super straight answer, but it's just so unique depending on everyone's situation. So I hope that was at least a little bit helpful. All right, I appreciate all the questions. If you have them, please keep putting them in. I am going to move to our next slide here and kind of look at our budgeting process. So here at the center, when we look at budgeting, we kind of break it down into a 5-step process. A lot of times people look at budgeting and think, oh, I can do that in my head. It's a mental activity. However, it is an action. It needs to be done physically, whether it's writing it down in a journal or tracking on Excel spreadsheets, like some of you have said. But it's important to actually do it and take action so that we can have our budgets and stick with them. We often think, oh, I made this much money on my paycheck, and oh, I have this much money in my bank account. I pay this much on my car insurance or my rent, but then there's not the next step to telling your money where it needs to go. So hopefully today you're going to be able to find some of those steps that you can do. Um, there are mental benefits of budgeting, just like if you like to journal or write things down. I know oftentimes I'm finding myself making a to-do list, and being able to write those things down can be a major stress reducer and relieve anxiety. So there are a lot of mental benefits to budgeting. And you can work through these different styles to figure out what works for you. And once you have that style down, you can work through the budgeting process steps where you're first starting out with your financial goal and then looking at a tool that you'll like. We'll kind of dig into some tools. You are going to identify your income and expenses and subtract those expenses out from your income and adjust your spending as needed. So we looked again, just an overview of methods of how, and now we're going to look at more of the doing, the action step. So the first thing that we want to do, and I know that sometimes setting a SMART goal can just feel a little bit redundant, but it's really important that we are, oops, sorry about that, smart about our goals, where we are being specific. So thinking about, what is this goal going to accomplish? What actions am I going to take in order to do this? In this example, the original goal was, I want to save money. And then the SMART goal is just being more specific. And it's telling us how much, how often, but more specific. And then measurable, what data is going to be measured by this goal. So by the end of those 12 months, your emergency fund will have $2,400 in it, and that's how you can measure it. Is it achievable? So you have to decide that for you. Is this something that I can do? If you're only making $200, would it be achievable to be putting $200 away, right? You have to evaluate that. Looking at the relevance behind it. How does your financial goal align with some of the broader goals that you have for longer term? Looking at your emergency fund, maybe to have that safety net. Timely. knowing that there's a time frame. So this goal is very specific and states that it's going to happen every month for the next 12 months. So being able to set that SMART goal, one of my goals that I have recently that I set was being able to save aside X amount of money to pay towards my car so that I can pay extra. And then I no longer will have a car payment, so that I can pay it off in the next couple months to a year. Um, and that was just something that I've done for myself recently. So we first set our financial goal, and then we are going to dig in and find a tool that you like. So there are a lot of free resources out there, and there are a lot of paid resources as well. I do just want to kind of spotlight that on our website, if you get on there, you can download, we have budget spreadsheets available, and um, it's really, you just take the time to fill out every single piece of information and put into your budget. And so Clarissa just shared that over into the chat box. If you want to take a peek at our budget spreadsheet that we have, and you can use that for each month. There are some of the other resources that are different apps, like you need a budget. If you are a student at Penn State, you can just type into Google, you need a budget student, and it will pull you up right to go to the webpage where you can sign in and get actually the first year for free with your Penn State email. Good Budget is another one. And then Pocket Guard. There are so many different ones out there. And I know for me, I've tried a couple different ones until I found what I liked, and it ended up being just a spreadsheet that works the best for me so that I can keep track of my budgeting that way. All right. Third step here, we have identifying income and expenses. So I'm hoping that you're getting more comfortable at looking at your budgets and seeing how budgeting can work. So being able to identify your income expenses, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but I do just want to dig into it a little bit. So when we look at our income, we look at the net. So here I have on the screen, gross is the most. That's the amount that you receive before any taxes are taken out, before any deductions are taken out. But what actually gets dropped into your bank account or your credit union is the net. So the net, we remember it by net is what you get. And that's your actual take home pay that is available to you for your spending. And then we look at our expenses. How are you paying for items? How are you tracking expenses? Are you using credit or debit? And keeping track on receipts or statement. And then, of course, like I said earlier, if you are paying with cash, then you definitely want to keep your receipts. I know that a lot of banks actually have where you can track your expenses and look at your spending that way. And you have to decide how you're going to track your expenses. If we put our pressure on ourselves to track our expenses multiple times each week, sometimes it can feel like a burden. But then if you're only tracking once a month, we don't give ourselves the time to make any changes and make any adjustments. So you want to just make sure that you're looking back to that. And then another budgeting hack is to habit stack. So for example, maybe on Sundays you do your laundry, and you can habit stack by every time on a Sunday that you sit down or that you get up and do your laundry, then you know that you can go and budget. So you throw your laundry in the washing machine and then go sit down and take 15, 20 minutes to an hour, whatever you need to work through your budget. I had a question about accessing apps that we have. Okay, Clarissa dropped it in there. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. The You Need a Budget is the one that students have access to for a free year. Okay, so now we want to look at categorizing our expenses. So this is kind of like a sample of a snapshot of what a budget could look like. And being able to break down your categories and you can see them listed like food, housing, subscriptions, entertainment. You need to decide what categories you want. And this here is not an exhaustive list. I know, like for me, I have one that's specific to health and medical. And so that would be like maybe somebody else would consider that personal. But different ones, you have to decide what you want for within your budget. Um, and then you want to, within those, break it down across your wants and needs. So in this instance, the person who was using this budget here has their needs as the groceries and then the Starbucks latte and sandwich. And I know I've definitely used my Starbucks latte and sandwich as needs before if I'm out and about, and that's my meal for my lunch or whatever. And I mark that down as a need. Whereas the other time they mark their Jamba Juice and Canes as wants. So being able to then categorize within your expenses while also including your savings. And just a small tip, adding in any annual or any quarterly expenses. If you're getting bills maybe every couple of months, quarterly or once a year, twice a year, whatever, such as maybe like your water or sewer, different insurance bills, your subscriptions, you can categorize those into your budget as well to make sure that when the time comes that you have enough money to pay there. I have different insurance premiums that some of them I pay once a year, some of them I pay twice a year. And so each month I can just put into my budget, like, oh, I need $10 every single month so that by the end of the year I have $100 that could go towards my certain insurance premium, for example. And that way I can, I'm not taking a bigger hit to my budget once that bill comes around. So just splitting it up every month, even though I'm only paying it once a year. Okay. So on the next slide, I'm going to show just a sample breakdown of what a budget could look like overall. And if you could just send me a quick message about what you notice, anything that you see about it, just as far as the way that it's broken down. Housing is the most expensive, exactly. And that's why, like I had discussed earlier, there's that 60-20-20 method where maybe more of your income would go towards housing, where in this, there's 30% of the housing. But yeah, different pieces are different here. Someone mentioned that housing should not be more than 25% of your income. That is a very general standard that many people do follow. And oftentimes, like different mortgage companies might only approve a loan for a certain amount, depending on your income. It's definitely a strong recommendation. It's a good recommendation to account for no more than 25% of your income. But it's okay if that's not the case, as long as you're still able to live within your means and make sure that you're getting all of your bills paid and still meeting your budgeting goals and your financial goals. Needs are very high percentage wide. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of needs in this. And yeah, but every budget is going to look different. I do encourage you just to maybe do like a Google search and search different budgets if you're still struggling on what yours could look like, to look up different categories, to look up different percentages or things like that. Again, it's very unique to you, and it's important that your budget reflects what you need. Now, a little bit of a side note here, but it would be remiss of me to not mention it. Part of budgeting, really make sure that we include and have these unexpenses prepared for, because it's not if an emergency happens, it's when an emergency happens. So we recommend like a 3 to 6 months, and really anybody that that you would talk to would say, make sure you have at least 3 months of your essential living expenses. So whatever you need to have. So your food, your rent, your car payments, any of your essential expenses. Um, and then, of course, in order to avoid living on the financial edge, paying yourself first to make sure that you have that money set aside for yourself. And keeping your funds safe and accessible is really important. We talked a little bit about the savings account and high yield savings. Again, you can join us on February 17th and we'll dive more into that and talk about that. Uh, a way to kind of look at an emergency fund, because I know for me, sometimes it feels like, oh man, it's just sitting there. But I know that when an emergency would come up, like my laptop broke and I needed a new one over the summer, and I hit a deer and I needed to pay for money towards my car, things like that that I didn't expect. But I knew I had that money set aside for my financial emergency, that when it happened, it was there. So it didn't feel like as big of a hit because I was prepared for it. I paid my bills, I moved on, and I felt great about having that emergency fund. And then now I've restocked to make sure that I have money put back into that. When working through our budgeting plan here, we want to make sure that we're subtracting out those expenses from your income. So being able to track every single piece of your income. This example here has a paycheck, some birthday money, and then some other, just a little $5 that's very random. Maybe somebody found it on the side of the road or whatever, but each of those pieces of the income added up for the total, and then the expenses all added up for the total. And then taking that total income, which would be the $585.07, minus that expenses, which is $561.54, leading to a $23.53 surplus. That feels good whenever there's a surplus, right? And so we'll talk about what that looks like of if you have a surplus or if you are in the red. But this here is the opposite of Alex's budget from earlier, where Alex was in a deficit, but we see here that 20 some dollars of surplus. I'm not sure if you caught it earlier, but Alex was only paying the minimum towards his credit card. And we can learn from that credit cards really make it extremely easy to overspend and end up with that shortage. So having a surplus is always a great thing to see. All right. And then the final step in budgeting, when you're going back and checking it and reviewing it and making sure that you're meeting your financial goals, say you have that surplus, there's a couple of things that you want to consider. I'm not sure why. Sarah, are you able to see on this slide? I'm sorry.
Keep
If you have a
clicking. Is it revealing anything if you click?
No, it's not.
Hmm.
And then it went right over to the red.
Do you want me to talk through it? I know what it
Um,
should say.
yeah, no, I'm okay. I'll go through it. I just couldn't figure out, I'm sorry, everybody. I couldn't figure out why um it wasn't showing what I needed it to show. So no, I can talk through it. That's okay. But yeah, so if you're in the green, you have a surplus. There should be words on this slide. I'm so sorry. But if you have a surplus, you just want to make sure that you have your emergency fund. If not, put that $23 in there to start off your emergency fund, replenish it. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, $10, $20, whatever. And then the next thing, if you have a surplus, make sure that you're paying off your debts, list them out, prioritize them, and pay them down faster since you have that surplus. And then also, when there's a surplus, you just want to look at saving for retirement. Maybe you start out with a couple dollars in a Roth IRA and you just put into that anytime that you have a surplus, whatever that might be. Other savings goals could also be taken into account. Again, saving for a new car, saving for a down payment, etc. But whenever you have that surplus, make sure that you're putting it towards a good use. And then if you're in a shortage like Alex was, you're subtracting out your expenses from your income. And so it's important here that you adjust your spending. And it does happen to all of us. It's okay if this happens. You just want to monitor and make sure that you make adjustments. When you're short on money, you're going to have to look back to that budget and analyze and figure out, oh, I'm spending a little bit too much on coffee. Maybe I can cut back there. And so you have to make that commitment to yourself. And again, taking that action to making these changes. A way to also cut back and adjust if you have a shortage is find additional savings. So maybe downloading a grocery store app or a gas station app and using, like I know, giant food stores, you can earn points towards gas money and get 10 cents off a gallon, for example. Sheets does that. There's so many different places that where you can save money that way. And you might also add a roommate to cut down on housing expenses. You could move to a lower cost of living area. I know that some of these might not be an option for some of you, but if it is possible, it's definitely a way to really cut out a big chunk of your expenses there. Another way is to utilize food banks to help supplement your food budget. So all of these are ways that you can save extra money. If your budget does allow for it, you could add an extra job, maybe sell some items online, try and pick up some overtime hours. It's usually easier to cut back than it is to add that extra work just because of time constraints. But you just, again, it's really imperative that you do what's important, what's best for you. All right, so again, just a quick review of that budget. And if you have any questions, I do have a couple minutes here. I see one there. Just keep sending them over. But again, it's important that you pick a budget style that works for you and implement it through into this for the budgeting process. You want to look at those financial goals, the bigger picture, and find a tool that works for you, taking your income and your expenses and then adjusting spending as needed. Okay. So again, any questions that you have, I have a couple minutes left. I do just want to show you here our next webinars. So again, I'm super happy to have you here with me today. I am going to have Clarissa drop a link for a survey. I want to know what we can do to improve and get you the information that you want and need. I love talking about money. And I'm so happy that you were here with us today. Any budget that you have is going to take some time and effort. And if you do want to set up an appointment with us, we are here to help. Students, you can just get right into your Starfish account. They are free, they are confidential. Yes, thank you so much for being here. But students, yeah, you can get on and sign up with us. We have a great staff here that can meet with you. All right. Thank you again for being here with us today, and I look forward to seeing you back in 2 weeks.